I still remember my first day in class. I woke up early, 4 a.m., prepared my lessons, went to class. It was just an A4 length of a lesson, and I couldn't teach it because I was in my own world in English, and the students were in their own world in Thai. There was a huge gap, and I've never felt like that in my life, my entire life. So I was so upset with myself, and I asked a number of questions. Am I qualified? Am I in the right place? Why did I even come here?
Welcome to Our Burning Questions, a professional learning podcast where we answer your most compelling questions about teaching, serving, and supporting multilingual learners. I'm your host, Jasmine Coaxum, and through our talks, I look forward to bringing the methods, philosophies, and stories behind teaching multilingual learners to light. Let's get into the show. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Our Burning Questions podcast. And today I have a special guest. It is a teacher in K through 12 of science, of biology, and I'm really interested to talk to him today to get some of his ideas, his methods, some of the wonderful things that he's doing in class in order to bring out the best in our students, including our L's and our multilingual students as well. So please welcome Agbor Effiam. I am going to just tell the audience a little bit about your background. So Agbor Effiam is a science educator with 13 years of experience working with students both in the U.S. and abroad in Thailand and the Netherlands. He holds a Master of Arts in Teaching Biology and an advanced certificate in TESOL, a Master of Science in GIS and Remote Sensing, a Master of Science in Natural Resource and Environmental Management, and a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. So a lot going on in terms of the master's degrees and the certificates. So Agbor, why don't you just tell us tell us more about your current role in education at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Yasmin, for inviting me into your platform. Presently, I am an educator, biology, teaching biology for 9th grade, freshmen, Schenectady High School. I've been there for 2 years now. Initially, I started as an intern while doing my Master's of Arts in Teaching and my advanced certificate in TESOL. So I started as an intern, then I've just moved up and got a job with them after graduating from Clarkson University. Yeah, so I was employed there as a science teacher, biology, but I can teach some of the other sciences as well. That's me. My story started somewhere in Thailand, and I am here in the U.S., yeah.
So tell us what brought you into education in the first place. How did your story start?
Interestingly, I always say this, that I didn't want to be a teacher. I come from a family of teachers. My dad was a principal in Cameroon. My elder siblings are all teachers. So I was like the black sheep of the family. I wanted to do something different. That's why I went into environmental science. In my mind, it would take me into research mostly. But then in environmental science, I took a course, environmental education. And before I graduated from my BSc, I was teaching environmental education to schools around the city where I lived. So like Jonah, as I always describe, Jonah in the Bible, I didn't want to go, but somehow I found myself there. Yeah, and when I did my master's in natural resource and environmental management, I traveled to Thailand because for me it was an opportunity to explore and then do some work, raise some money, and further my studies. Again, I went to stay in Thailand for 2 years. I ended up spending 4 years teaching.
Wow.
So it's something when I get into, I find it difficult to leave. So I always just say for me, it's become a lifestyle. It's become a lifestyle. And I went to the Netherlands after 4 years in Thailand and did a Master's of Science in GIS and remote sensing. So you realize that I wasn't giving up so soon. But then from the Netherlands, I had to come back to Thailand and continue teaching for 3 additional years. Then when COVID-19 hit, I was like, you know what? I can't run away anymore. Let me invest in this education. And so
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, so why did you said you had to go back to Thailand to teach another 3 years? Like, when you say you had to, you mean because it a burning desire, or why did you say that? I'm curious.
Yeah, at the time I realized I didn't need to fight anymore. I was teaching, but fighting to sustain that desire of getting more into probably research, maybe corporate world. And I decided, no, I'm not fighting anymore. So I went back to Thailand, taught for 3 years.
Okay, so there's a couple of quotes that I took from your Facebook page, and one of the quotes is, "Teaching is a lifestyle. What do you think?" And then there's a little caption that says, "Can't help but teach." So with this story that you're telling me, really now the quote makes a lot of sense. I'm still going to ask you to expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by teaching being a lifestyle? I really want to focus in on that. Teaching is a lifestyle.
Yeah, and I say that with all humility because I still have memories of my dad teaching. And while he was teaching and we were going to these same schools, living in these same communities, the standards he held for us was too high because he felt like as children of a teacher,
that's right,
we ought to carry ourselves in a particular way. And so it became like part and parcel of our lives. Morality, respect, love, we just exude it as we go along. Not like having 2 lives. I have just 1 life. But in that 1 life I have, I try to showcase all of that. I remember when I was in Thailand, the way I dress, one of the things, the way I dress was so impressive that even when I'm going to the grocery store, in my mind, what do I want those who look at me to learn from me? And so that restrains a lot of things in my life that I want to make sure that at every air I breathe, every word I utter, every move I make inspires somebody in a positive way. That is just it for me. It's a lifestyle. But then I decided to polish up my practice by taking a Master's of Arts in Teaching so I can really be grounded in the things I do to make sure that my intentions come out there clearly for others to learn.
All right. Now everything comes together for me, right? Because that's really a curious quote. I mean, I've never really heard, and I've spoken to many educators at this point, and I've never really heard anybody refer to teaching as a lifestyle. But now that you're bringing it into perspective in terms of it being just part of your being to help people in a way that's really going to make an impact on them, make a positive impact on them, and definitely that is the essence of what people do as educators, right? So now I fully understand that quote now. So I guess I want to go into you are getting, or you have now, I think you have now a certificate in teaching, an advanced certificate in TESOL, right? Yeah. What made you decide to do that? Because obviously you have this wonderful science background, and now you're marrying this with a TESOL. So what inspired that decision?
My early years in Thailand. Remember, I'm coming from Cameroon, where I studied in French and English. And I moved to Thailand, where their language is Thai, and I had to teach the Thai kids chemistry, biology, science in general, in English language. I still remember my first day in class. I woke up early, 4 a.m., prepared my lessons, went to class. It was just an A4 length of a lesson, and I couldn't teach it because I was in my own world in English, and the students were in their own world in Thai. There was a huge gap, and I've never felt like that in my life, my entire life. So I was so upset with myself, and I asked a number of questions. Am I qualified? Am I in the right place? Why did I even come here? It was so shocking. And then I had a friend. He tapped me by the shoulder and said, you have to calm down. This is Thailand. If you can teach a sentence and the kids understand that sentence and they are able to defend you for that, you've done a great job that day. So from that point on, I made a decision, bought a book, and I was reading Thai at home and practicing Thai in the market, in the community where I lived. Now, through those years, I realized that I picked some Thai language, understood their culture, and I became better in my class. Remember, I didn't go to any school to learn how to navigate that society and make my practice better or get across to my students. But I realized that it paid off a lot. And so when the time came when I noticed TESOL, the availability of a TESOL course in Clarkson, where I was coming to study for an MAT in teaching, it immediately clicked. That is a great opportunity for me to make sure that wherever I will find myself, I will be able to get across to students whose first language is not English language. And trust me, it has been a wonderful learning journey for me, and it's paying off because schools in the U.S. are more diverse compared to the school in Thailand. There is just one language. Here, I meet students with 5 different languages. Imagine I didn't have a TESOL concept, TESOL background. I'll be getting into class in September with fear, with uncertainty, because of the diversity in terms of languages students speak and even their culture. So that is why I went into TESOL. And also, I know that as somebody who is considered a non-native English speaker, even though I always debate that in my applications.
You debate it? What do you mean? What do you mean? How do you debate that?
I debate the whole concept of non-native English speakers because I studied all my life in English language, from kindergarten to universities, right? And I am still considered non-native English speaker based on the fact that probably Cameroon is considered a French country. You see, so sometimes it's limiting for international students who want to apply abroad because they have that as a proof to show. But then that aside, I learned a lot in this program, and it has given me strong, let me call it a bag of tools to perfect or to make sure that my practice is enhanced. I have sharpened my skills through this TESOL program, and I'm glad I took it.
I love what you said about taking a step back and learning more about the students that you were teaching in terms of their culture, in terms of their language. Yes, of course, it's a lot easier when you're teaching to a group of students that share the same mother tongue, right? It's easier to say, all right, let me learn about this language, how maybe there might be some confusion on the part of my students due to the way their language is structured versus the way English is structured, and to dive a little bit into their culture so you can relate to them better. I think that, yes, it is easier in that situation teaching English as a foreign language, right, as opposed to teaching it as a second language here in the States. But at the same time, it's just little steps, little bits, right? So you are now you and many of the educators listening to this podcast are now faced with such a diverse batch of languages and a diversity of cultures that, yes, it can be intimidating, but at the same time, it's like letting the students bring you into their cultures, affording them the stage to be able to do that instead of feeling like you as the teacher needs to go and study some books and do all of this type of like background research. No, you don't have to even do that because you have the resources right in front of you. You have the students right in front of you who are more than happy to share their culture and their language with you. So I really love that you said that, and that's how you realized that you were starting to bridge your professional expertise in science and in teaching science to learning how to really relate to students from different backgrounds. That's really great. So my next question is really about some of the creative ways that you engage your multilingual learners in biology and environmental science. Now that you have this I want to say extra expertise due to your certificate in TESOL, due to your experiences, how have you now brought some of that into the classroom to make it very engaging?
Yeah, I did that last year during my internship. My mentor gave me opportunities to try that. And it starts with the language. Sometimes some kids, of course, kids are at different levels of language proficiency. So for some kids, they will prefer that once you give them a text in English, some of the key words are translated in their language to help give them that understanding so that they can easily access the content, which is science. So sometimes we could do simple translation of key words. Sometimes if we are using a video, we make sure that the video might be in English and the subtitles in their local language. That's when you're giving students videos individually to listen to the video and answer some questions, getting a general concept or general idea of a specific concept in science. So when we do that, they are listening in English, they are reading subtitles in their language and making that connection. Because the whole idea is to move them, make a connection between what they know in their home language with how it is expressed in the English language. So with these two techniques, it helps a lot. Sometimes it just takes a student to realize that their language is welcomed in a class, and then they pick up. So for some students, there are some days I come into class and I write good morning in their language. And so when they come in and they see it, they get confused. They're like, are we learning today in my language? Some students will ask you, yeah, some students will ask you, did you write that? I'm like, yes. And other students will be eager to know what it means. And then the student will be the expert now. You give the student an opportunity to shine, because that opportunity may spark something, an aha moment for that student to trigger their learning experience forward. There are also other opportunities where, for example, you have 2-3 students in a classroom who speak the same language or who have the same L1 language, first language. And so if I get these students in group and get one of the students who is more advanced in their home language to be partners in that group, they will support each other. In this case, the students are the focus of their learning. They are the agents of their own learning. I am just guiding them and creating opportunities for them to express themselves in the best way they can, and also to do that in English language. Because at the end of the day, as a science teacher, my job is make sure that students understand the content I teach them and are able to express their understanding of this content just as experts would do. And so gaining understanding may be in their L1 language. Expressing that understanding in English tells me that they have grasped that concept.
Yes, there's a couple of things that I want to address in terms of what you said, but this last one, I, at some point a few years ago, was teaching a class of Chinese students in a business school at Fordham University. And when I would give them some kind of prompt, they would speak in their own language. Okay. They would get together and they would really be, discussing in their language. And then they would come back and they would express the ideas perfectly in English. And it's just, I feel like sometimes there's not enough credit even given for this type of bilingual or this kind of dual language understanding of concepts, right? And being able to express them in both languages, right? And I love that you said their languages are welcome. A student understanding that their languages are welcome just really opens up the floodgates, I feel, for them to take in the content that you are then teaching. And I had a similar experience as a language learner of Italian, where I was in class. And then when I heard the teacher, because everything was in Italian, essentially, even though it was a beginner class. But then when the teacher said something in English, okay, I grabbed onto that because I was in Italy. This was in Italy, right? So when the teacher said something in English, I grabbed on in my mind and I was like, oh, okay. And it just it made me feel more at ease. So yes, it's something that's really important. And one of the other things that you said in that last comment was about students being agents in their own learning. And I love this phrase, agents in their own learning. And they can only do that if they are feeling comfortable, feeling supported, feeling like whatever they're bringing into the classroom is welcome. So you actually did a presentation last year, and it was titled The Role of Integrated Instructional Routines on Literacy of Ninth Grade Biology Students. Now, this presentation was for NICE TESOL, which is actually where we met. Right? I met you at NICE TESOL TESOL, the Nice TESOL conference in Albany last year. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see your presentation. We actually met at someone else's presentation that actually was on this podcast as well, Melissa Campisi. She was doing a presentation on culture. And that's how I decided to invite you onto the podcast after speaking with you. So can you just tell us about the contents of this presentation that you did last year at the Nice TESOL conference?
Oh, yeah. This presentation, the idea about the presentation came up during my observation at Schenectady High School. And the observation was that 9th grade students are performing low or below their potential in the Regents exam. And one of the key reasons we talked about, and most of the 9th grade biology teachers also mentioned that, was the fact that they find it challenging to read. So their literacy is a little low when it comes to reading and comprehending the questions the way they are written, the way they are structured. So at the time I was doing that observation, I said, no, I'll have to come up with a proposal. The idea is that I get a proposal, and once it's properly polished and I have the opportunity, I should be able to implement that in the classroom and see how it goes and see the outcome. Because if the challenge is reading and comprehension, then we need to include routines that will empower them, that will bring up their reading and comprehension skills. So that is the content of that presentation. Which instructional routines are out there that if we put them together within a lesson, within a unit, it can help the students to learn or improve their reading and comprehension literacy. They may understand the concepts when you teach them in class, but they are unable to express that understanding and as well as apply that understanding in a different context, just like the Regents exam is. So the lab is a classroom where all sorts of activities take place. And then the Regents exam is like the outside world where students need to apply their understanding from the classroom into that outside world. But then there is a disconnect. So my objective for that presentation was to document instructional strategies. Do we have enough reading comprehension activities for the students? Do we teach them techniques of navigating reading comprehension in the sciences? They may be doing reading comprehension in the languages, probably in ELA, but they don't know how to translate the skills they get from there into the science classroom. And so the objective of the project was to see how we could put a number of activities together to help them decode the scientific words that are in the text that they are reading, and to be able to show that understanding in the different ways that they can. For example, if I talk of instructional routine, I'm looking at probably should we include a video for students to watch with a set of questions, maybe multiple choice questions for students to respond with respect to that video, such that their attention to the video is glued because they have to answer questions? Or do I give them structured questions so they can write from a video, express their viewpoints? Or maybe do I just need to give them a CER, claim evidence reasoning sheet, and give them a claim? I can give them a claim and ask them to find some evidence from the video or a text that they are reading. All this just in an attempt to build literacy, because the only way to build that is let them do it, and then you guide them a little bit. So the idea of the project was to, through a cycle of probably an academic year, get some of these strategies in play, go through with them, see students how they perform, isolate the ones that really worked well, and the next year you keep doing that. And if we do that for 3 years, 4 years, because it's the practice of teaching, after 5 years you have a real toolkit of activities that work well for groups of students, and then we can keep doing that to replicate the results that we want.
That is a very logical and scientific way to go about figuring out the best way to support these students in their literacy. So that's really great. And I was going to ask, I know that you have quite a few research articles published in the realm of science, things that are basically above my head, okay? Because it's really very scientific research that you have published. And so I know that you've done that. So do you see yourself doing research on the synergies between science and language instruction? I mean, publishing something on this, or was that the intent with this? I know that you did a presentation on it, but is this an ongoing research effort that you then hope to publish some work on?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. The idea is get into data-driven instruction. So instruction that is based on proven research. For me, in the US, that is my start. So I want to start from that point. So do things, keep records, keep results, and keep tweaking them to get the best out of it. But at the end of the day, share this with the professional communities that are out there. There are many educators out there that don't even have time to do research. And so if there are people who are interested and they do it and it works over a period of time and we share it, it will be a great addition to the education community. Yeah, I intend to do that.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple more quotes of yours from Facebook, just asking you a couple of questions about these quotes, okay? So you said, to my EP students, it doesn't matter whether you're wrong or right. Share your thoughts with parents, teachers, and sound seniors in the society. I would love to know, was there a particular situation with a student or students that encouraged you to post this?
Yeah, the EP students referred there are my students in Thailand. I was teaching in an English program, and so these students were mostly Thai students. And
now, EP, when you say EP there, what are you referring to exactly?
English program.
Oh, you're okay, because I was curious about it. I was like, EP, what? There's so many acronyms going. Okay, so all right.
That message was for my students in Thailand, because over the years I noticed that they keep shying away because, oh, teacher, my English is not good, so I cannot say it. So even when I am not with them, I keep sending them these messages to let them know mistake is not a hindrance. It's an opportunity to learn. And while I was there, I kept telling them this, and I quote my own example when I went to Thailand. I didn't know any word in Thai, but I will read a book about making sentences and saying some few things in Thai, and I go to the market as if I'm going to buy, and I'll be saying those things, practicing them with market women, and they'll be laughing, and I will be laughing, but then they will teach me the correct thing. And they were like, teacher, I cannot do that. I'm like, no, don't be scared of mistakes. Just say it. If you don't say it, you will not know if you are right or wrong. Nobody is a magician to come into your head and say something is right or wrong when you've not said it. And I like quotes like that. There's another quote, I don't know if you saw that. It's saying, you have to say it, you have to talk, because your words are light and life to others. You may say it wrong while you are learning the right thing. Another person by you may have just learned the right thing without saying it wrong. So we are all valuable in the things we do, in the things we say, no matter how wrong or right we are. I keep saying these quotes and using them even to my students today in Schenectady High School. Sometimes they say, teacher, I think you should be a life coach now. I'm like, this is...
Yes. I'm going to comment more on that in a moment, but go ahead. That's wonderful that they said that. Okay.
Sometimes I feel like the challenges we have been through life are the bedrock of what we have to share to others. And if we refuse sharing, any moment we have is an opportunity to share. I don't hold it back. I always just share. Because I know that somebody is going to pick it somehow. An engineer speaking will be interpreted almost correctly by other engineers. Somebody who has gone through an experience, sharing that experience, is connecting to thousands of others who may be going through similar experience, or who may need that information at a particular point in time to be able to navigate a circumstance in life in the future. That is why I went to Facebook. My students were always on Facebook. Then they come to class in the morning, tired and sleeping. And when I asked them, why are you sleeping? Were you on Facebook late at night? Yes. So I went to Facebook. And so I will meet them in the late evenings. I see them all. I told them, add me on Facebook. They were happy. And when I see them online, I will greet them and we chat a little bit. 5 minutes, I say, don't you think it's good to sleep now so we can have a good time in class tomorrow? Meeting the students where they are and taking them to where you want them to be, you think is better for them. And it has worked for me so far. So I like those quotes and they mean a lot to me.
I am just going to repeat a couple of the things that you just said. The first one, meeting the students where they are and taking them to where you want them to be. All right. I want everybody listening to this to remember that. And then to remember also the other statement you made, a mistake is not a hindrance. It's an opportunity. Yeah. So now, Agbor, tell us where we could find out more information about your work, about whether or not you have some upcoming projects. It sounds like this is a project that you have, the one you were just talking about with the 3-year study. But just tell us anything that you would like the audience to be aware of in terms of your work and what you have going forward.
Yeah, I think I'm on LinkedIn with my names. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I have most of the materials I've published so far there. And that is not the end. It's just the start. We keep moving. We are not there yet. We are still working. We are work in progress. So like the project you said, it's something that I hold dear. And I would love to do that, to see how data-informed practices can help the educational systems and help our students. Yeah, but also I'm on Facebook. I know that Facebook for teachers in the US is a little complicated, but I've seen it work, and I am still there. And most of the things I do there is share my passion. I share my passion about teaching. I share passion about life. And I have a lot of quotes that I share too there just to make sure that people get access to it. And who knows, my job is just to send the seed out. What it does, the good I hope it will do will be beyond expectation. So I just share. As long as it comes from my heart and I know it's morally sound, I share it.
So this brings really the conversation full circle. Your students saying maybe you should be a life coach. The fact that you share these thoughts that are on your mind, that are philosophies that you have about life, about the way people should conduct their lives in order to get the most out of them. So all of that goes back to the idea that you expressed in the beginning of just teaching being a lifestyle, right? This is part of who you are, your beliefs, and you are willingly sharing those beliefs and those feelings, those thoughts, those philosophies, once again, very openly with your students, and just in having a holistic experience in terms of your work. So that's wonderful. That's great. I am going to ask you the final question that I ask all of the guests who take their time to speak with me here on the Our Burning Questions podcast, and that is, what burning question should today's educators consider in order to improve their service to the L and ML community?
Okay. Wow, great. I think there are some things educators know already that they can change, they can work to change. And there are issues that they understand that will linger around for a long period of time before that changes. So one of the key questions that I have, and I feel like educators need to start considering too, is, with all the challenges and the limitations that we have to perform in the classroom, lateness will be there, absenteeism will be there, students' attention grabbing will be there. How can you organize your lesson in a way that it will be impactful? Knowing that these challenges are here, how can I make my lesson most impactful, most effective? That is a question I am thinking about. I was talking to one of my superiors in school, and he shares that same idea. Because sometimes we complain about the things we cannot change, and it takes away of the energy we have to focus on the things that we can really do effectively. And it doesn't help our practice, it doesn't help our students. So what can we do, irrespective of these challenges that we have, so that if we have a 45 minutes lesson, at least we could capture the students and make some learning happen in even 20 minutes?
Agbor Effiam, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for talking to me today on the Our Burning Questions podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Our Burning Questions, produced by Mid-State Auburn at OCM BOCES. If you would like to learn more about today's guest or any of the resources we discussed, please visit Mid-State Auburn's webpage at ocmboces.org. That's ocmboces.org. Join us next time, where we hope to answer more of your burning questions.